Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm reviewing episode 20 of Ultimate Spider-Man called Run Pig Run. I'm not sure if this is a reference to the famous German flick Run Lola Run or not, but I'm kind of going to pretend that it is simply because that's actually quite a good movie, and this episode honestly folks, I don't really know what to do with this episode. If you were to ask me at the end of the day, did I enjoy it, then the answer would be yes. If you were to ask me why, I really don't have a good answer for you. But let's talk about some of the more interesting aspects of this episode. First of all, we get to see Thor and Loki come back, so it is nice to see that they are going with some continuity here. They are drawing on the established mythology of the show. And the previous episode with Thor and Loki, I thought was pretty enjoyable. It was funny, there was some nice action, and there was honestly some genuine character development there, when the heroes all sort of had to realize what it is that they had within themselves, what they had to overcome within themselves. I was really hoping to see more of that from the series, and honestly, the series has kind of been very hit or miss on that. Now, whether or not that's a flaw in and of itself is kind of going to depend on you. I'm cool with the jokey, humorous style that we have going on here. It's very reminiscent of what we saw on Man of Action's previous show, Ben 10. But on the other hand, I'm a longtime Spider-Man fan. I mean, seriously, I've been a fan of Spider-Man since I was like 4 years old, watching a videotape of some episodes from like the 60s Spider-Man cartoon. Seriously, that's how far Spider-Man and I go back. So, I've become naturally very fond of the storytelling, the drama, the pathos and angst and all that other fun stuff that comes with a good Spider-Man story. And I certainly don't mind the more lighthearted take that this show is taking. After all, this show airs on Disney XD. This is basically a show that exists. It exists to appeal to Spider-Man fans of all ages, generally. But at its core, it's there to grab the 10-year-old kids of 2012 and make sure that they're going to be the next generation of Spider-Man fans. And okay, that's cool. I'm fine with that. That's necessary. All right. Now I know we older fans can kind of grumble about how silly this and other sort of more lighthearted superhero shows can be, but remember, folks, if we don't get that next generation of fans in, then the industry and the characters we love are just gonna die, and we're gonna be the weird old guys hanging out in basements talking about shit that nobody cares about. And sorry to kind of use some bad language in this review, but it need to be said. But anyway, I think I've had said enough for the moment about the serious side of things. So let's look at the more lighthearted aspects of the show. So got my notes right here. There were some of the jokes that I did like in this episode. I definitely enjoyed Spidey referring to Loki as Jokey. I think they were going for a reference to the Smurfs there. And if you're somebody of my age, you're of course very familiar with the Smurfs. I have not seen the recent Smurfs CGI movie. When I was a little kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old, Smurfs were cool and all that. But the Smurfs and I parted long ago, so they have been delegated to the realm of fond childhood memory, and that's where they're just going to have to stay. But I did like that. Let's see. But the overall humor of this episode, I think, is really what's holding it back for me. Because seriously, it's just pig joke after pig joke after pig joke, with a pretty much endless series of pig and pork related puns everywhere, constantly. And most of them aren't really all that funny. I mean, God almighty, talk about beating a dead horse. Ugh. I don't think I have anywhere legitimate to further go with that point. It's just that's what they were doing. It wasn't funny. I cannot think of anything more to say about that. Um, Now there are some another. Let's go back to another positive of this episode. One, they're drawing again on the comics, specifically the Thor comics here, bringing in the character of Scourge, who, and this is vaguely referenced in the episode, is also known as the Executioner. He's a long time, rival of Thor, as I understand it. I'm not super up on my Thor characters, but I understand them enough. I'm pretty sure he's also fought the Avengers a couple of times. And the Executioner's deal is basically there to just sort of be the Enchantress's attack dog. And the Enchantress is, well, she sort of alternates between being Thor's enemy and being his girlfriend. Because, Thor comics are like that. I don't know. I mean, hey, why not, right? Heck, look at the Scarlet Witch. They can't decide if she's a villain or an Avenger. And if you honestly look at some of the crazy stuff that the Scarlet Witch has done over the years, it's amazing that they actually even let her on the Avengers. I mean, she has gone evil more than once. And if you really want to get a perfect example of that, well, go and read what she did to Wonder Man one time in front of her teammates. And then years later, they got into an intimate relationship. I'm not going to spell it out here because I think I've used up my obligatory crossing the PG-13 territory reference once, but seriously, just do some poking around. I'm sure you'll come up with what it is I'm talking about. And man, oh man, that's some messed up stuff. The Scarlet Witch is a very screwed up lady. But anyway, this episode also draws on actual Norse mythology. The whole wild hunt thing, that's a real thing. And it's actually some really interesting stuff to read about. And of course, it's also something that's been tapped more than once in fantasy and various supernatural stories across other media. But they do that because, well, honestly, the idea of some crazy superpowered super magical guys chasing some poor soul down, that definitely makes for dramatic storytelling. And speaking of drawing from mythology, well, they definitely reach into the odd side of Marvel continuity here, and we get to see their take on Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham. There are some days when I look at old-timey Marvel, and the only explanation for what it is that turns up there is that the guys who were making those comics were on drugs. Seriously, that is the only explanation for some of this stuff. Now, to be completely fair, I guess this is a Spider-Ham. God almighty, do I actually hate saying that out loud. He's not a character I'm super familiar with, but his deal is basically he's the Peter Parker of some alternate Marvel Earth inhabited by funny talking animal critters. While here, of course, we're dealing with Peter just being turned into a talking pig. Yeah, I'm actually reviewing an episode of Spider-Man where Spider-Man is turned into a talking pig. Old-time Spider-Man fans, I gotta ask you, when you were watching this episode, were you the only one who was really finding yourself missing the 90s Spider-Man cartoon? But anyway, let me try and get my focus back. Spider-Ham's just one of those things I've never actually read that much about any real stories about him. I just know of him, and he has his fans out there. I mean, it's one of those very kitschy, quirky ideas that either you're going to think it's really funny and cute and be down with it, Or like me, you're just gonna kind of roll your eyes and go, okay, whatever. Who knows what somebody was smoking when they came up with that? And if you feel the opposite way of me, that's fine. If you enjoyed this episode more than I did, then I'm happy for you. All right. As I said, I love Spider-Man, and I want other people out there to enjoy and love Spider-Man as well. But tastes differ, and well, folks, this episode just really doesn't do it for me. But of course, I did say that at the end of the day, I enjoyed this episode. And I think the thing that really kind of redeemed it at least a little bit for me was seeing Peter realize that the Amazing Friends and S.H.I.E.L.D. had his back. Now, I disagree somewhat with the assessment that they did this because they care. Now, I'm not going to say that the Amazing Friends and Nick Fury don't care about Peter as a person. I'm going to say, though, that they've really bounced back and forth between that, or at the very least that the way they show they care is somewhat questionable. I mean, I've pointed out more than once the times when the Amazing Friends have been complete and utter dicks to Peter for no real discernible reason. With the whole thing of not taking Peter's desire to protect his secret identity seriously, with them not taking that seriously. And of course, Nick Fury has not been upfront with him and has installed spy cameras in his home. But anyway, we're going over old territory here. But seeing Peter genuinely being touched by the fact that, however they might feel about him, controversial, whatever stance on that you want to take, that at the end of the day, when he really needed them, that S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Amazing Friends did have his back, and that Thor had his back as well. I mean, let's remember this. This isn't something huge. 16-year-old skinny geek dude from Queens, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, has earned the respect of a god. That's something that's a real testament, I think, to Spider-Man. And I like that it is hinted that Loki is going to come back and take another crack at Peter. And this time he's probably going to want even more a shot at the Amazing Friends and S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, one of my reviewers in Homesick Hulk floated the idea to me that after seeing the Hulk go off with S.H.I.E.L.D., that we might see in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe eventually the formation of the Avengers. Well, we've got Hulk, we've got Thor, we've seen Iron Man, we know that Captain America exists out there somewhere. So honestly, I think that really could happen. And it is worth noting that for the last several years, Spider-Man has indeed been a member of the Avengers. And if you even read the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, it was made clear to him that one of the reasons that S.H.I.E.L.D. was taking so much interest in him is because they honestly thought that when he was an adult, Peter was someone who would fit in on the Ultimates, aka the Ultimate Universe's version of the Avengers. So that, and just that they did Thor well and Loki well, was enough to sort of push this episode into the realm of enjoyable for me. But only just barely. Frankly, I'm kind of hoping that since we seem to be moving towards the season finale, we've got about 6 more episodes to go, if I remember correctly, that they'll go for something a little bit dramatic when it comes time to wrap this season up. Ben 10 tended to do that, and I'm hoping that Ultimate Spider-Man will continue that trend. Because honestly, I found the episodes where they do the dramatic stuff to be the ones that are much, much more enjoyable for me. Well, anyway, folks, that's all I have for you this time. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. And until next time, take care and have a good one.